Hey everyone, welcome to Craven Something Scary, where it's all horror all the time. Now before we dive into this Scream 5 update, please smash that thumbs up button on this video, as it really helps out the channel, and it also helps other Scream fans find this update. And if you've not yet subscribed to the channel, what in the world are you waiting for? This is the time to do it. So click that subscribe button and the bell icon to ensure you'll be notified the moment I post all future Scream 5 and other horror movie content. Okay everyone, in this video, I'm going to discuss the return of Jill in Scream 5 and how that could possibly be the case and how it may impact the story of this new Scream film. So let's get into it. So, recently, Google made a change on their official cast list for Scream 5. All of a sudden, we now see that Emma Roberts, who played Jill Roberts, of course Sidney's cousin and the mastermind of the murders of Scream 4, has been added to the cast list on Google. Now, this brings up a lot of questions, and what I'm going to do is give you what I believe are 3 possible scenarios of how Jill is back in Scream 5, and then I will let you know which one of those 3 I predict will most likely come to pass in the movie. So, the first possibility for Jill's return in Scream 5 is they begin the movie where 4 ended. So much like we saw in Halloween Kills, how it picked right up where Halloween 2018 ended and just continued the story of that night, we could see the movie begin at the hospital. And we'll see like Jill's body being zipped up in a body bag. And then we could see the news reporters outside and all of a sudden saying, wait, because remember at the end of Scream 4, they were talking about how she was going to be a hero. Well, they could be talking to the cameras and say, all of a sudden say like, wait, there's been a new development. Jill Roberts is actually deceased and was involved in these horrific murders in some way. We've even heard that she was the individual behind this massacre, something like that. Then all of a sudden, we see Tara's house fade in on the screen with a tag at the bottom that says 10 years later. And then Scream 5 really begins. So basically, it would be a really cool way to tie up Scream 4 so that we know for sure that Jill is dead and the chapter on Wes Craven's final Scream movie is indeed now closed. That is possibility number 1. Now, the second possibility for Jill's return in Scream 5 is that she is back in the form of a news article. Since the Scream 5 murders are taking place in Woodsboro once again, there will have to be at least a mention of the previous murders that took place 10 years earlier. In this scenario, I would picture something like this happening. Imagine the 3 Ghostface attacks, for example, that have taken place in the movie, and Dewey's in his trailer. And he turns on the news, and the reporter says, "This is the first time there has been a Ghostface attack in Woodsboro since the tragic massacre 10 years ago that was orchestrated by the deceased Jill Roberts." And then you see her picture in the article appear on the screen, or on the story, appears on the TV screen as that's happening. Now, I could completely see that happening, very plausible. And that's not the only thing. Perhaps one of the new characters, let's say, they're in the middle of talking, they're hanging out, whatever, and then they get an update on their phone, like a news update on their phone with a picture of Jill, and the headline says something like, 10 years later, it has started again, or something along those lines. And in this scenario, no matter how it would play out, be it like a news article on your laptop, your phone, the television, or even a good old-fashioned newspaper, they still make those, believe it or not. But either way, I think what we'll see in this scenario, there would be a still shot of Jill that would appear, and there would be either in the news article or with the reporter, and it mentions how these new attacks compare to the previous attacks 10 years ago. So that is a possibility for how Jill will return in Scream 5, and it's very, very plausible. Now, the third and final possibility for Jill's return in Scream 5 is they have a flashback scene at some point in the movie. Now, in this scenario, they would actually flash back to a literal scene taken from Scream 4. And they could modify the color to make it black or white or some other color to tint the film. Like you see in movies when they remember back to an earlier time in their life or whatever, there's always sometimes a different color tint to how it looks. I could see him doing something like that with actual Scream 4 footage. And, we could see a scene in the movie where one of the characters like Sam or Richie, maybe they ask Dewey, hey, is this like what happened 10 years ago? And then we see a scene from Scream 4 where Jill's holding the knife or stabbing herself or something like that. And then Dewey responds and says, no, this is something different. It does not feel the same as what happened 10 years ago. Something similar to what would happen in this scenario is that we would get a quick flashback shot of Jill while Dewey's telling the story of why these new attacks feel different. So that's basically what this scenario would be. It would be a literal flashback scene because remember, Spyglass Entertainment and Paramount owned all the rights to the Scream movies. So they have all of them. So it would be no big deal for them to go to Scream 4, rip out a section of it, just a little quick scene of Jill, and put it in here as like a memory, like Dewey's having a memory and he's remembering back. And that would totally work to put that into this scenario. And so he could be telling the story and say, no, this is different than that because blah, 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 whatever's going on, right? So that's the third possible way that I see Jill being back in Scream 5. Now, given these three possibilities, I will now tell you my predictions for each of these scenarios. So, for possibility number 1, I do not think it will be scenario 1 because Scream 5 is not a direct continuation sequel in the same way that Halloween Kills is. While Scream 4 is in canon for the new movie, from all indications we have from both radio silence and comments from the cast, such as Courtney Cox, it looks like this is not the direction that was taken for the movie. Now, Scream 6 could for sure take that model on, like Halloween's doing, and start right up the same night that Scream 5 ends, depending on how it ends. Especially if Scream 5 ends with a cliffhanger, they could totally start 6 that same exact night. However, it does not look like this is going to be that direct type continuation from Scream 4, and as far as being a direct sequel to that storyline. So I think this scenario, while it could happen, is the least likely to happen of those three, in my opinion. That leaves us with possibility number 2 and possibility number 3. Let's begin with possibility number 3. I do think this is definitely a real possibility of taking place in the movie. Having a flashback scene using actual Scream 4 footage is totally plausible, as Paramount owns the films, as I mentioned earlier, and they could easily snag a scene from Scream 4 and insert it into the movie. So my prediction for the possibility of this happening, I'm going to say it's about 20 to 30% chance that it could happen in the movie. Now, I would have ranked it with a higher likelihood, but I did not, because I think there is a scenario with an even higher chance of happening, and that is possibility number 2. I believe and predict right now that we will see Jill return in Scream 5 in the form of a news article. I really think there will be a mention of the Scream 4 murders at some point in the movie. And just as we saw in Scream 1, when Sydney turned on the TV in her living room and she saw Gail and others talking about what had happened to her mom a year earlier, I think we will see that same type of scene, but this time it will be a still shot of Jill, and the reporter will be referring to the murders orchestrated by Jill that took place 10 years ago. This scenario just makes the most sense to me, and I do think that Radio Silence will acknowledge the murders of Scream 4 and will give us final closure on whether Jill survived or not. Now, some of you have asked me here on the channel if I think Jill is alive. And my feeling is that she is indeed dead, and those electric paddles in the hospital Man, they fried her brain. Sidney just finished her off. But there are some folks out there who think that Jill is still alive, and without a gunshot wound to the head, they are not dead. It's basically their motto. So I think having a news article inserted into a scene in Scream 5 that confirms Jill is dead would just be a great way to acknowledge Scream 4, as we know it's in canon, and it would bring full closure to the status of Jill's life, and so we would know for sure it's a done deal. So that is the possibility that I predict and the scenario that will be the most likely to happen in Scream 5. Now, while I cannot be certain, of course, for sure until we see the movie, but the idea of seeing a news article or a TV report with a picture of Jill where they discuss the current attacks and the murders, that just seems to be the most plausible of these three options. All right, guys, that's everything I wanted to cover in this video, but as it is with every video I post, I want to begin a discussion with you in the comments below right now. What do you think about Jill's return to Scream 5? And what do you think about her being added to the cast list on Google? And what do you think about these three scenarios? Which one of these do you think was the most likely to occur in Scream 5? I want to hear your opinions and your thoughts and your ideas. And of course, I love to talk about your theories, guys. I always look forward to it. So go ahead and start leaving those comments right now. I look forward to talking with you very soon. Well, that's it for this update, but I will be back with more Scream and other horror movie content before you know it. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, guys, this is Craven Something Scary, where it's all horror all the time. Thanks for watching.